the Laughter After Trauma show. So, my name is Deanna. I'm a speaker, educator, and coach that brings light and lightness to the heavy topic of trauma. I'm a thriver after intimate partner violence, and my journey led me to find beauty and laughter in healing. And so I believe we are all magic and we all have inside of us what we need. We are all self healers. And I do the Laughter After Trauma show to kind of highlight people and situations in which they've triumphed in the face of trauma. We don't dwell on the trauma, even though we do get some backstory, but we really talk more about the ways in which we utilize tools and tips and mentors to help us in the healing process and just sharing our laughter after so that you know that you're not alone and that if we can, you can. So that's basically the premise of the show. Today's guest I have with me is Kate Butler. And Kate Butler is a TV host, a #1 international best-selling and award-winning author. She is a speaker and a publisher. So she is the founder of Inspired Impact book series, which empowers individuals to write and publish and speak their own stories to help and heal the world. And Kate's passion is assisting others in fulfilling their dreams, and she believes it is all possible. I'm going to add a little note here because the way I know Kate is through a program that I went through called the Miracle Mindset, which is a program that she was able to do in collaboration with the company who I am certified as a life coach through. Well, one of. So one of my certifications is through ULA, the Mind and Body Company, and she was able to do a program there that talks about mindset. And the thing that I love about that program really is, you look at it and people talk about mindset and they think that that's the only thing that matters, but the truth is that it shows so much more. It shows it. I'm not going to give it all away. You have to go get the program. It is definitely worth your investment. It's an investment in yourself, but it helps you to learn really how to approach life's difficult situations. And I find it personally on a spiritual level as well. So that's just me. Okay. So with that being said, welcome, Kate. Thank you for joining me here on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
So yeah, so my phone is doing some weird stuff right now. So it's trying to go to sleep while I'm on the phone, which it never does this. So that's weird. So we're just going to roll with it. I don't know. There's some new enhancements on Fireside, and every time they do it, it's something new. But it looks like our audio is really good, so that's really all that matters. So, Kate, I would love to hear a little bit about you and your background. As most people know, that when I bring people onto the show, even though I'm familiar with you and the work that you do, I don't necessarily know your whole story and I don't want to know it. I kind of like learning this through the conversation that we have here on the podcast. And so, in my notes, you had things, these were your 3 points, which are all very different. So, just maybe weave through these: the heart surgery, family and business hardship, and a car accident. So why don't you get into a little bit about your backstory and knowing that your backstory has everything to do with why you work in the field that you do. So talk to us about it.
Sure. Yeah. So those are all very, very, very different things. We may have time for one of those today, and
Pick your favorite.
maybe two. I don't know how it's going to go. Right. So I'm totally open to how it unfolds. But definitely all three of those are major, major topics. So I will start off with the heart surgery because it really was a catapult to what I do now, and how I really got to this place of awareness that I so gratefully sit in today. I always was a little different growing up, to say the least. I always felt like I spoke like a totally different language, than everyone around me. And I never felt like it was a better or worse thing, but I definitely felt that it was a different thing. I also never felt like I fit in. Like I was never that kid that had a best friend. Like I had friends, but I didn't have like a best, like no one really, I didn't feel like anyone really understood because again, I just felt like I spoke like a very different language than everyone. And with that had very different thoughts than everyone. And, the kids would in my neighborhood be out playing tag and, with water guns or whatever else. And I would be going out to the mailbox and collecting free magazines and cutting pictures out so I could create dream books in my room at 11 years old. Like just, I don't have any idea, vision boards were not mainstream at that time. The
I was just
Secret
going to
had
say
not come out yet.
vision boards before they were a thing. I love it.
Yeah, like I had in a little book, those pages that like, peel off and you like stick back, and I did it actually in all different forms. And, I could feel when I would come across certain pictures, like I'm really drawn to that. Like I'm really aligned with, like I didn't have the word aligned at that time, but I felt something different. And that those were the pictures I cut out. And it's very interesting to think back because one of those pictures was California and I didn't really even understand what it was or where it was. I'm young at this time, right? Grew up on the East Coast. And so we actually did end up going on a family vacation at some point to the West Coast. And I went, this is just where I'm supposed to be. I don't know why. Like, of course I like the weather, but it was more than that. I didn't know what it was. So my parents refused they didn't refuse. I mean, it was like a gentle refuse. Like they basically were like, if you go to college on the West Coast, like we're complete with supporting you financially or any other way. And I'm like, okay. At 18, I was ready to be out of the house. I don't know that I was ready for like that clean of a cut. So I ended up going to college on the East Coast and I just knew 4 years. So I was like, you ever see those jokes that people put up? Like if people looked in my window, they would think I was like a serial killer with all the stuff I have on my vision board and like the strings and the pictures and like the maps out and all this stuff, right? Like that was me in college. Like I had boards everywhere.
Yeah,
like I was the only one. I had maps up. I had mapped out. I said, the second I graduate, I'm literally packing up my car and driving cross country to the West Coast. And that's exactly what I did. So I drove to the West Coast and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I drove up and down the coast until a place felt right. I ended up in Orange County. I always say if I went as far south as San Diego County, I might never have come back to the East Coast where I actually am now. But I stayed in there for 7 years. And while I was there, my first boss at the time, wasn't my first boss, my first like real boss. I did like kinds of odds and ends jobs. And I got distracted because, Ula. Who's the Ula guru? Wait, is a guru and seeker, right? Okay. Anyway, they're liking our post right now and it totally distracted me.
Tell them, shh, be quiet. They know we're doing this. I told them.
Oh my God. Anyway, so so I end up on the, so I drive there. I end up on the West Coast. I'm there for 7 years. And my first boss at the time started to introduce me to what I'll classify as mindset, but I didn't know it at the time. It was like, you have to read these books as training. And it was As a Man Thinketh, and it was Think and Grow Rich. And it was, Acres of Diamond, and all these different, and I was just like, okay. And all of a sudden my brain like exploded. And I was just like, all of this makes so much sense to me. Like, it just was like the first time. Now I had been through school at this time. I had graduated college at this time. And although I did okay, like nothing ever like actually clicked the way that this information did. It was like I was getting a master's degree in mindset. And I just was like, I was the only one around me that was like devouring this information. And I couldn't understand why. Everyone else was like, what are the cliff notes? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I literally read this on repeat. The second I stop, I start reading it again. Like I just couldn't get enough. So that took my career to a whole other place. At 25 years old, I was running a multi-million dollar office. I went all the way to the top. It was all based on implementing what I was learning in these books. So I had a huge job, a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility at a very young age. And fast forward to 27, I started having all these, signs and, all these, kind of, shakes from the universe, if you will, to wake up a little bit and start paying a little bit more attention, to what was going on with me internally. But I refused. I was 27. I was young. I was making money. I was living my career. I was like checking off all the boxes. And until I wasn't, until the universe was like, okay, you don't want to pay any attention, then we will just stop you. We're no longer tapping you on the shoulder. We're no longer nudging you. We're no longer shaking your shoulders gently. Like, enough is enough. Here comes your ton of bricks. We've all had the ton of bricks. Well, here was my first ton of bricks, right?
Right. And I mean, you know it, I know it, and we've said it a million times. If you don't take time to care for your body and rest, your body is gonna make you. It's gonna make you. It's just like a car. It's just gonna make you.
Absolutely. And this is why I love Well Mind and Body Company, right? Because literally their primary focus and why I decided to partner with them, as you mentioned in the beginning introduction, is because they have such a beautiful way of building you from the ground up so that you're taking care of the inside, you're taking care of the outside, you're taking care of all of it, like all encompassing, hence the Mind and Body Company, right? So I just absolutely love that there are companies out there that are literally dedicated to ways to do this effectively, right? With the proper support and the proper tools. But I didn't have that at that time.
Right. None of us did.
Yeah. So here I am on my own, and I am, basically just kind of brought to my knees where I start having like just severe chest pains and I can't breathe and I actually black out at one point. Okay. And so I go to the cardiologist and he was like, he like hooks me up to an EKG and he was like, oh my God, you immediately need to go to this next test. So I go to the next test. You immediately need to go to the next test. It was literally a 2-day span of one doctor after another, after a test, after a test, after a test. They couldn't believe at my age the results they were getting. They did every test about 4 or 5 times because they kept thinking they were going to get a different result. Like I had no prior health concerns. Nothing that was my life or like my lifestyle or like anything added up to the results that they were getting. And finally, after the end of day 2, they were like, look, it's not an emergency. Like if you can't walk into the emergency room right now because there are people literally having a heart attack. So they're not going to take you at the emergency room, as crazy as this sounds. Okay. But they said that the earliest we can get you in, was basically like, the following week, at some point. And they were just like, we just don't know if you're going to make it. So if I drop dead, then they'll take me in the emergency room. But I basically had to have dropped dead before they would take me there. So they couldn't schedule the surgery for like that day, right? Like that was the earliest you could get like a schedule. And even that obviously was an incredible rush. But the time between that appointment and when I was supposed to go in and get surgery was literally like you're walking around with a ticking time bomb, right? Mm-hmm. So what I began to realize is like, that's every day. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
So at 27, I started to, I was really given the gift of this awareness. I was really given the gift of this beautiful awareness where your time is right now. Your time is right now in this moment. Your time, is to be cherished. Your time is sacred. Like we get to do this, right? Like we get to do this life.
For and I like what you're. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say for as long as we're given, right? But none of us know what that looks like. Right. So when I went in to the surgery, obviously I'm here. So thankfully, they were able to help me through the surgery. And they woke me. The doctor was there at the end, like kind of when I came to, and she said, "I have great news. We fixed your heart." And I remember, and here I am, like just coming out of anesthesia. I'm totally not with it. I don't remember anything else I said, but I do remember this. I remember looking at her, and I remember almost laughing, right? And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Like, thank you for that. I said, but what I think you don't understand is that I actually had the gift of fixing my heart before I came in here. Like, it was the time leading up to that surgery that fixed me. Like, that was what I needed. That was my wake up call. That was my entire life shifting in those days. Go ahead.
And was it the beginning of where you realized like how people can be grateful in any kind of given situation? Because this is something that gave you awareness and it created in you gratitude, even though it wasn't a good thing, per se, but what came from it wound up being so much more than you know, what could have
Well, it
happened.
was
So it
interesting.
creates
It was
gratitude.
interesting. To be honest with you, I felt like I was staring in the face of death for every single moment leading up to that surgery. Um, it definitely took its toll on me. And I would say that after the surgery, when I was physically okay, like after healing and all of that, of course, but like after the surgery, I would say that I had a lot of unpacking to do.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah, of
not an
course.
immediate gratitude, if I'm being totally honest, right? Like,
Right.
it was a
No,
lot of
it's a
unpacking.
process. Okay.
And it was that process of being like, what the heck just happened? Right? Like, how did that come out of nowhere? Right? Like, beating yourself up for ignoring it for so long, letting it get so bad, letting it get to that point. What if it went another way? Like, there's so much. There was a lot for me to unpack. And so I did go through a couple of years of doing that, of unpacking that. And I actually went on a journey of like, okay, now I just got to do all the things that I always said I was going to do, because who knows, right? So I started doing that, and I continued in my career. I was accomplishing crazy things. I got married. I started to have kids. Like, I bought the house. Like, I did all the things, right, that I like always wanted to do. And I remember it was 7 years later after my surgery, and I'm standing in my new house, and I have, a baby upstairs. I have a toddler and an infant at the time. And I remember like looking around my foyer, like literally like standing there with one kid up like for a nap. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, oh my gosh. Like, everything in my life is just fine. Like, it was like, it was more traumatic for me to realize that than probably the news I got. As it was this epiphany that happened in this moment where I went, all of the ways that I promised to show up for life and everything that I learned through that process, like, none of that exists in my life today. The only thing that exists in my life today is that I took out a list and started checking off boxes. And I know how that sounds, because here I have 2 healthy children. I have a husband that I adore. But here's what it was. Like, I was showing up big in my career, and I was showing up big as a wife, and I was showing up big as a mom, big time for all of these other people. I was showing up big time as a friend, and I was showing up, big time in my community. But there was not one piece of my life where I was fully showing up for myself, for me, for why I was here, for my purpose, for the gift that I have been given, for the gift that I'm supposed to share with the world, for literally why I'm in this time and space right now, right?
So where did that shift come? What instigated the shift for you to kind of move into that?
It was the awareness that I'm looking around at this life that from the outside, everything looks just okay, looks great, actually. I'm sure it looked great to a lot of people. And inside, as much as I loved my family, outside of that, it was completely empty
Yeah.
because I wasn't on purpose
Mhm.
in any other way other than this family unit that I had built. I
Mhm.
wasn't on purpose. I wasn't showing up in any way for my purpose or for myself. Do you see what I mean by that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do because, and I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to this because especially if you've been through any type of trauma, because you look outward, and now we have social media. So probably over some of the course of this time that you were doing all of these things, it wasn't social media putting things in your face. But now we have that on top of everything. And so you tend to look and go, oh, yeah, so she, oh, Deanna, she went through this trauma, and this stuff happened to her kids, and they were preyed upon. But look, she's fine. She's a life coach, and she's got a show, and she's got a podcast, and everything is hunky dory. I mean, that's great for her. And it looks a certain way. And I mean, I think that's kind of like everybody's life, because you don't ever really know what's actually going on inside. And I know for me, when you talked about gratitude, for me, when I was first getting to know Ula a little bit, I went to one of the Ula Paloozas, and with the trauma that I went through, and you don't know my story, and this is not about that, but when I was coached by Dave, Dr. Dave, he didn't let me off the hook. He told me I had to be grateful, and I was like, no, I don't. I didn't do this. I was enacted upon. My kids were preyed upon. No, I don't. No, no, you can't make me. I was like a little toddler. But he didn't let me off the hook, which was good, which was good. But I did work an entire year just to get through like forgiveness and get over the guilt and forgiving myself ultimately, that brought me around to be able to even begin to think about how can I find gratitude. So
Yeah.
there's so much work that goes into it. There's so much work that goes into it.
Absolutely.
So
Wow.
in that process for you though, you found purpose that you needed to share. Is that what you're doing now?
So in that process, the first thing I found was inner peace, inner joy. These were the same thing to me at the time, and sort of still are, if I'm being honest. This feeling, that the best way I can describe this is like an inner joy and an inner peace, like this tingling sensation inside of me that just is complete and utter, like serenity and joy. And it's just God. It's just God showing up in my body. And that was the first thing I had found in this journey, where I went, hold on a second. I just need to be still. I just need to be with myself. I just need to think for a second. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just remember being like, I just need to think. Like, I just need to, like, it's not working. Oh, there goes my hair. Woo! I'm getting excited. It's not working the way that it is right now, right? And I just didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant. Like, I have this like whole like things have to change. Like, I cannot go on this way. Like, my life is so, like, the monotony of this is like literally, like, if the heart surgery didn't kill me, like, this is going to, like,
Mm-hmm.
like, once I realized it, like, oh my gosh, like, I promised I was going to show up for my life, and I'm not doing it.
Right.
I'm showing up for their lives. I'm showing up for everyone else's life. I'm not showing up for my life. And when that hit me, it's like, once you know something, you can't unknow it, right? I
Right.
went, oh my God, I just have to go and think. And it was the first time in my life that I really started getting quiet, right? So now I know to call that my meditation time, my prayer time, my reflection time. I didn't have any language for it at that point. I just knew it was what I needed. And after doing this, like, whenever I could grab some moments, it was probably about 2.5, 3 weeks into this process of me just trying to find some clarity. All of the sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like something's stirring up inside of me. Like, I'm starting to feel really different. I'm actually starting to see things differently. Like, this is when gratitude started to come in. Like, I could actually understand what that really meant and how to apply that and use that, and all of that in my life. But it was the first time I went, oh my gosh, this, how I feel is generated from the inside out. Oh, I
Right.
get to actually control that. Oh, I get to actually choose that. Oh, I get to actually navigate that. Because up until then it was like I'm having a great day, but my husband comes home from work, he had a terrible day, and then all of a sudden I go from having this amazing day, boom, right down to where he is, right? Because as
Mhm.
humans, we automatically want to match our surroundings.
Right.
It's human nature, right?
Mhm.
And so, and if he was having a great day, then I would have a great day, right? And it was always this game, but I was never I was never determining anything. And here I went, oh my gosh, for the first time ever, I am not connecting my joy, my happiness, my peace of mind. I am not connecting this to anything outside of myself. Like that was a life changing shift for me. It was the
Right.
first time. I'm in my early 30s at this point. I have two kids. I had never in my life truly felt true peace and happiness not connected to something outside of myself up until that point. That's
Well, and
crazy.
honestly, if I'm being honest with you, you probably were still ahead of the curve even on that, because to learn that and discover that in your 30s and have that, I was in my mid to late 40s
Mm,
before I started really going, I gotta worry
mm,
about me. And I'm
mm,
the oldest of six kids, so I'm the caretaker, right? So that's just like
mm,
my job, my role. And
mhm.
and then you get married, you have kids, and the way you're raised and all of these things. I was in my mid 40s before I did that. So I mean, of course now my kids are grown, but I really have been working for many years on them because I'm close to my mid 50s now. But so for 10 years or so I'm working with them going, you need to know this. You need to know
Yeah.
this. And so hopefully they're getting that in their late 20s, early 30s, but still ahead of the curve. But yes, I
Mm,
get it. I get
yeah.
it.
That was the defining moment for me. That was the defining moment that really began to shift everything because I had the awareness at first that led me to that, but it was that moment that it really showed me that I had some control,
Hmm.
that I had some choice in the matter, that life wasn't always happening to me, that this wasn't just the hand that I was dealt, like whatever you want to say about it. But
Right.
up until that point, I just went like, I guess this is it. like,
Right.
I guess
It
this is
just,
what I'm like. This is what I'm left with. It was
right. And I,
fine though. See, that's the whole thing. Is that at that point, like I thought I should just be grateful that I was alive. Do you see,
mm,
like because
yes.
of what had transpired prior to that?
Right.
Like I should just be grateful for all of this. Like how selfish that you want more when some people just want this. You know what I mean? Like some people just want to have a child and they can't, right? And like all these thoughts run through your head, of like just be grateful, right? Like
Hmm.
don't want more, don't be greedy, right? Like all of
Right.
that. And what I had to really overcome was like this has nothing to do with like me or like greedy, I want more, more, more. This literally just all came, like what this all became about was like I have a gift that God has given me and it is actually selfish of me to not share it. Like
Hmm.
that's actually what came out of this. And as long as it feels aligned as long as how I'm showing up is to help heal or inspire someone, I know I'm on track.
Right.
I know I'm on track, right? So that's a big jump that I just did, right? But actually where that started for me and got me on the trajectory of what I do now.
Right. And I do feel like it. So, like when we talk about ULA and the reason why ULA picks the people they want to collaborate with, and the reason why you resonate with that is, one of their base mantras or MO is, that you're designed by God for greatness and a purpose.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and you instinctively and intuitively you listen to that.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
do it, just in what I'm listening to you talk, and from a little kid going, with vision boards or however you want to call it, vision
Yeah.
books,
Yeah.
right? Vision walls,
Yeah.
whatever. Whole walls, whatever it was, just
Yeah.
knowing those things and just listening to the calls and heeding
Mhm.
them and following them allowed you to move from one place to the other. Now, I mean, I think just like any of us, we find ourselves in places where we think we're on the right path and we're not, and it puts you in a rough place. But even that allowed you to be intuitive. It changed things. So tell us about what you do now, and like how it transitioned from this point to now what you're doing, because you probably still had a job during all of
Yeah.
this discovery.
Yeah. So when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Bella, I knew I had the corner office right on Market Street in downtown Philadelphia. We lived in southern New Jersey, and I would drive over the bridge, and I would park every day, and I would walk to my high-rise office, corner office building. And one day I just went, "Oh yeah, I'm not coming back here." After I have the baby,
Again, you see,
like,
you're just following your intuition. I
yeah.
love it.
I was like,
I'm not doing
I'm
this.
just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do it until I can't, but once I have the baby, I'm just not going to do this. And that wasn't necessarily like premeditated, and actually my husband's always like, you totally bait and switched me. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you like, we're totally like this corporate person. Like I totally love to like all this stuff. Right. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, no, thank you. And we laugh about it now, but it was a really big decision at the time. And so I just was unavailable for that. I just thought, I don't know, something came over me. I just said, no, I just can't do that anymore. I'm unavailable for that. So I stayed home with my daughter. And it was so funny because everyone who really knew me was like, oh, you're going to be bored in like 3 seconds. And I was like, no, I'm not. This is my new dream. Like, I'm going to be I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I'm just going to do the mom things. I'm just going to do the park, and I'm just going to make the baby food, and I'm just going to do the things.
Play dates,
Yeah.
yes.
It was just like, I really did enjoy all of that time. But then there was also, right? Like I was like, this is not an either or, this can be an and. So I started a couple businesses, just like little stuff from the couch, that type of thing. And eventually I was just like, you know what? Like, why would I spend like 8 hours making like $500 when I can spend 8 hours making like $50,000, right? So I just was like, I'm just going to actually open up my own company. So I opened up my own company doing what I did in staff, like in corporate. Like, okay, so that was very successful for a long time. And it was just other people like me. Like we got to all work from home all over the country. I, had people working for me that, and we could all have time freedom, right? But we also had, the money to support that. It was a really good gig until that moment in my foyer when I went, nope, I am just going through the motions. This is not what I'm not put here to do this. Like it was successful. I had employees, like I was employing people, right? I had big responsibility with that. I was the president of the company, and I went, nope, can't do this anymore. So I ended up selling that company, and that was and then through that process of like, what am I doing? It led me to write my first children's book. And this book was how do I say? It was everything. I told you I thought differently about life my whole life. And now I surround myself with people who absolutely speak my language. That didn't happen until like my mid 30s plus. So prior to that, I was still kind of like, I want my children to understand the way I see life, right? And I always want them to have something that they can like concrete, that they can refer back to. Call it legacy, call it what you want, your mark on the world. But I really felt important at that time that they have that. So I took all of the ways that I look at life and all of the different, really how I saw things very differently. And I translated all of that into a language children can understand. And that was my first book. It's called More Than Mud, Making Muddy Moments Magical. So all these moments in life where people are like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm always like, what do you mean? That could be a magical moment. Like all we have to do is look at it this way. All we have to do is do this. All we have to do is choose that. So I take, the reader through all of these pivotal moments of your life. And again, there's fun factors in it for the kids, or the hidden ladybug on every page, like all sorts of fun things like that. But at the end of the day, right, like this is a really powerful message. So that book ended up being on the bestseller charts for over 100 weeks straight, like right out of the gate, my first book, right? No idea what I'm doing. Like I have literally no clue.
No, but
But
people,
I
and
figured it
you,
out. Yeah.
well, and
I knew
you knew
something
what
different.
people
Yeah.
needed to hear. You
Yeah.
knew what people needed to hear. And I think that's a lot, because I'm just hearing it in how you just follow your gut, and you're just like, yeah, nope, that's not what I want to do. Nope, this has got to go this way. You just
Hmm.
cut it, go. So I think that's awesome. So 100 weeks, that's a lot. That's a lot of weeks.
You bring up such a good point there. I did know that it was right. I knew that it was on purpose, but I did not know any of the how. So when I say I didn't know what I was doing, that's what I mean. Like, I didn't know any of the how. I think that's so important. Thank you for pulling that out. I think that's so important to distinguish, because so often we feel pulled to something or called to something or inspired by something. And we're like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that, or how I'm going to get there, or how I'm going to get the money, or how I'm going to get the funding, or whatever it is. And we allow that to stop us.
Mhm.
And even though we know it's on purpose. So if I had allowed, I did not have the money. I did not know an illustrator. I did not know the process. I did not know how to publish. I really did not know at the time any of those things.
Right.
And I just took it one step at a time. And if I had let any of those roadblocks get in the way, I would not have had this book be the bestseller for over 100 weeks straight. And more importantly, because awesome credential, thank you, great, wonderful. Really, what it is all of the lives that book has touched and continues to touch to this day. And that's how I know I'm on purpose, right?
Right.
Help, heal, and inspire.
Yeah. And it's not your only book. It's not your only kids book. I mean, I know you do the collaborations, but you have another kids book too, don't you?
Yeah, so that was the beginning of where this all started. We have several kids' books now. We have More Than Mud, we have More Than Magic, we have Believe Big. My children are actually a part of all of our children's books along with us. They write, they illustrate, we go and speak, we do school assemblies and author readings. It's really, really a lot of fun. I help other people publish their children's books. I help other people publish their own book. It doesn't have to be a children's book, memoirs and, fiction, nonfiction, journals. We do it all. We also offer a collaboration book that people can write a chapter, and we walk you through exactly how to do that. So you become a published author through this incredible 6-month program and process and community, and step by step. It's actually a business building course, right? So how do you really make this book into a business? And this is about people who business, because in sharing your message, right? We always say, like, the dollar signs in your bank account equal the amount of hearts that you can help, heal, and inspire. So
Agreed.
it is about getting the message out, but it's also about sustainability of that, right? Like, how do we sustain that? So I was able to take my corporate background, my business background, that 25-year-old running that multi-million-dollar company, right? And incorporating that with purpose, right? To put together programs for people where they can be on purpose, show up and share their message, but also be strategic in business so we can sustain it. So we can have you continuing to share this message in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, and so on, right? So all of our programs lead to that. We have programs, they put people on stages to be keynote speakers. Program that we're talking about right now is called Take the Stage, right? Where come if you have it on your heart to speak but don't know where to start, don't know what to say, don't have a stage to speak on. We take you through the whole process, right? Like, there is actually a step-by-step process for writing your killer keynote to get up there and connect with the audience, right? Shift the room. You can feel when a room shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Shift the room, right? And and then do it, right? Like, our programs are all about, like, this is how you do it, and now let's do it. None of my programs lead without that final deliverable. We never just teach about it, we teach and do. Teach
Yeah.
and do, right? So let's write the book and publish it. Let's
Right.
write the speech and practice and perfect it, and then take the stage and actually deliver it. So everything we do is all around message, getting out to the masses, and everything in our program is about that, including the miracle mindset, right? Which, you said it's worth the investment. It's like $79 for the miracle mindset. Like, if you
Right.
haven't taken it, please go to ula.com you can drop your link in here or whatever works for you, but, like, go and purchase that program today. It is a 21-day reset. Is it a 21-day miracle opener for you? It is literally pennies. You're paying like, it's like $2 or $3 a miracle, for goodness sake.
That's
Right?
right.
But
That's right. And
come
that's what I
on.
was going to say. Yeah, I mean, that program. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and one of my ambitions, and I ain't going to lie, I wanted you here on this because I have a book in me that I've started, stopped, started, stopped, started, stopped because I don't know what I'm doing. I do write for an online magazine, but a book is a whole different it's than 500 words at a time. You know what I mean?
Sure,
And so
sure.
it's a lot
Yeah.
different, and but not only do I have that in me, I've spoken at a few places like locally and everything, but I want to impact bigger. I want to impact bigger and where I
Mm,
want to serve with moms who have to recover, and how do they heal after their
mhm.
child has suffered from sexual abuse? I mean, how do you process that? How do you get through that? How do you process through trauma? It's everything that led me into the trauma informed coaching to begin with. You know,
Sure,
it's not just what happened to me. It's probably less what happened to me and more what happened to my kids and how I had to deal with all of that together. But
sure.
so I didn't realize you had all of those programs. I thought everything was um, kids kids book and then the collaboration books. I didn't realize it
Mhm.
was, yeah. So that's really extensive. So I love that. So I appreciate you putting the plug in there because that's always something I like everybody to do. So here's something I like to do. If there's anybody in the audience who has questions, you guys raise your hand. I'll bring you up. You know that the stage is always open. So if you're here on the platform, if you're on the web, unfortunately, you can't join the show. But if you're here on the platform itself, you can raise your hand, ask questions, interact, engage. One of the things that I like to do as we're kind of wrapping things up is for you to give us two, this is going to be a double folded question, 2 to 3 things that you want us to go away with that you think were key in shifting and healing, whatever it is, whatever you want us to take away from this. And then the second question is, is there a point in which you realized that you had found your laughter? Was there a place where you went, click, this is what I need to be doing. This is making me smile from the inside.
Yeah, so I'll answer that one first because that's really, really, really clear to me. So when I started to work with my kids and my family, and we were able to create what I call art. These books are art. This is whatever form of art you have inside of yourself. We all have it in some way. So you
Mm-hmm.
can call it your art or your song or your gift or your magic or your brilliance. I call it all of these things. But when I started to collaborate with my children and they started to write and express themselves and draw and speak, um, yes, that was like, okay, wow, this is a full circle moment for me. This is something I didn't plan on. Like, that's the best part, those organic moments that come out of you busting through the roadblocks, that overcoming the challenges, trusting when you don't know the how, right? Like, and those, by the way, are some things I want you to take away. Is that, it organically shows up and you're like, okay, whoa, it's all for this. It's all for this moment. Got it. Got it. See, what happened was when I was standing in that foyer and I, realized like I am not showing up for my life the way that I'm meant to. What also happened in that moment was I realized that if I did not show up the way that I was meant to, how could I ever expect my children to show up fully for themselves if they did not see me go
Love
first?
that. Hmm. Totally.
And I had to go first. I had to go first. Even if I failed miserably, I had to at least show them that I tried. I had to show them what it was like to go for a dream. I had to show them what it was like to step out of the norm, to step out of, the rat race, right?
Right, 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 right.
Step out of that checking off the boxes that so many people do. Like, if that's you, like, no judgment, but if you want more, get there and get there faster. Okay. So that moment was for me, like, the laughter, the aha, the like all of it, right? Like that was the defining moment for me when I went, okay, wow, like this is brilliant. Did I lose you? Is it just my show
There
now?
it is. No, yeah, it's just you. Congratulations. Now you have the laughter off the trauma show.
I'm like, I'm kidding. But I was like, oh, okay. How am I going to wrap
No,
this one up by myself?
that
Anyway,
was
so I
sorry.
so that's what that was. As far as the takeaways, I think it's really, really important, like that to go and go now.
Mhm.
I very easily, at 27, very, very easily walked a really fine line right there. Could have died with, your music still inside of you, your song still inside of you, my book still inside of me, my brilliance still inside of me, whatever you want to say. Okay. So since then, I've made a conscious effort, obviously, to make sure that I get out as much of that as I possibly can. Now, conversely, I actually had a client that waited too long. And by the time she pulled the trigger, she actually passed away before her book was published. And that changed me. That really changed me. It's not just a cliche statement, like, don't die with your song inside you. Like, do not.
Right.
Because if you're here listening to this right now, then you still have a shot to get it out. Like, get out your brilliance in any way that you possibly can. So the main takeaway, like, yes, go for it. Like, yes, don't worry about the how. Like, yes, the roadblocks are going to come there. It's not even like the roadblocks, like, what are we going to do? Is expect them. They are, it's not like if they show up, they are showing
Know
up.
that it's
And we
going
can,
to
that's a whole other
happen.
show and talk about that. Yeah. It's like that is going to happen 100%. So yes, but the main thing is, like, it is time to show up for your life. That's it.
Mhm. So I love that. So I'm going to just kind of recap a little bit. So one of the things that I loved that you said was trusting yourself when you don't know how, but trusting that pull so that if it's in
Mm-hmm.
you, you said, go now, go now. And I mean, that's all we have, right? That's all we have. It's now. That's it. That's it. Because we don't know what's going to happen when we walk out the front door. I don't care if you're in the perfect health, like you felt, yeah, I didn't have anything wrong with me, but here we are. It doesn't matter. I have a cousin who got breast cancer when she was 30, 31. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. You know, but then you're off on a whole, so it's now. What is the saying? I mean, everybody likes to say it's now or never. It might not be never, but it's now because you don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's out there. So I like when you said trust it even if you don't know how, because you have to go now. So I love that. Um, I like and this wasn't one of your specific takeaways, but I like the fact that in your laughter after where you found the true joy in it had to do with art, your creative side, and collaborating with that in your family. It is what is a miracle. It is a miracle when you are able to do what you love, put something that is of extraordinary value out into the world, and you do it together where everybody feels like they're part of that. That is just, I think that's amazing, and it makes me
Mm-hmm.
think on different levels of speaking and my kids doing the speaking with me because they were involved in the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just, there's so much. And I think now is such a time that people need to hear and need to know that their gift does should not be hidden under the basket. Like let it shine. We all have something, and you're doing a disservice if you're not putting it out there, which is something you said in so many words, I guess, without
Absolutely.
putting words in your mouth, but sort of. so
All good. Yeah, that was beautiful.
so I love that. I want to say thank you and I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there any additional things that we didn't cover that you wanted to add to this? Yep.
This has been wonderful. I love the organic conversation. I love just allowing things to unfold. I'm so grateful for Ula who brought us together.
Yes.
And act so truly grateful. Dr. Dave, Dr. Troy, the whole Ula team. Absolutely instrumental in, an amazing opportunity to package, some of the content that we're talking about here today, but obviously so much more in that miracle mindset. But even more than that, just opening their hearts and their arms and their, everything up open to me in this community for me to, come and meet and, just really connect into this beautiful community called Ula. So I love that you're a part of it. I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And I'm grateful for them to have made the connection so that we could be here
Yeah,
today. Thank you for so much for calling me.
thank you. Thank you for coming. I mean, we can blame Adina for our connection because I got,
Oh, okay. So it really was Deanna who really facilitated this one.
yes,
So I
right.
see you, girl.
Because I had her here and I'm like, who do you recommend? And she was like, first
Oh,
immediately, Kate Butler. I was like, oh, okay, that's
I
great. I would have
love
probably never have
her.
asked.
She's
You
my
know what I'm
girl.
saying? Because like I didn't know all of your story. So anyway, so yeah, so I just like and I like going on the recommendations because it kind of just leads. I've talked to authors. I've talked to lots of different authors and news people and just all across the board, all kinds of people. People I'm like, what? You have an Emmy award and
Yeah.
you're talking to me on my little show? What is happening right now? But you
So
know,
cool.
whatever. I'm not afraid to ask,
Yep.
you know. But
I love
but
it. Such an
what I want
inspiration.
to say to you and to let you know before we head out, and people who are used to watching my show are used to hearing this. I like to tell my guests that I see you and you are beautiful. And I really like
Mm.
to say that because I don't think we hear it enough. That's number one. And when I summarize and stuff, I want people to know that I'm listening. I do see. I took 2 pages of notes when we're talking because I want to make sure that I'm hearing and being a good steward of your story. So I appreciate you being here with me.
Mm. Thank you so much. What an honor.
Okay, so
What an honor. Thank
guys,
you.
nobody was brave enough to jump up. This happens a lot. They're like, yeah, we're just listening. It might be lunchtime for a lot of people, but that's cool. So it's good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We're gonna do it again. We're gonna do it again next week, so it's fine. So look, feel
I
free to jump
love
back
it.
in anytime you want. Now you're on Fireside. If you ever want to, just listen in, listen to replays, whatever. They're always here. You're more than welcome to get up and talk with us whenever I have guests. So
I love it. Thank
yeah, no
you.
problem. And now you know what the show's about, so you can send some recommendations. Shameless
Absolutely.
plug. Shameless
Yes,
plug.
it'd be my honor. Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here, you guys. I want everybody in the show to just know that I appreciate you guys listening in and attending the show, whether you're listening to it live or on the replay. I'm Deanna. You've been listening with Kate Butler. I'm your coach that leads you to your laughter after. I see you. You're beautiful. So until next time, you guys love each other, stay connected, and shine on. I'm going to sign you out with a little bit of my husband's music. I like to let that play on our way out while we get ourselves off of camera and out of this app. It takes a minute. Thanks again, Kate.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure.